Been a hot second, but Joe, we're back. We've got international football start. Well, international football started already, but we've got tournament football starting. The Euros are coming. It'll probably be some bad COVID ball, but hey, let's go outside, enjoy the weather, and have a happy hour.
Yeah, hello, welcome back and to the Happy Hour, United Happy Hour, Pauly. It seems a while since we've done one. We've had a couple of weeks break, hiatus, whatever you want to call it. Over here in the UK, it's starting to get really warm now. Summer's coming, tournament football's coming. I'm getting some real sort of 2018 vibes going on here at the moment, you know what I mean? England, that World Cup that was... Well, no, it's probably not that important, but it's just England and tournament football, getting all excited only to be let down again, probably in a semi-final, even if we get to the semi-final this year, I don't know. But look, at the end of the day, Pauly, I quite enjoy tournament football. It's like you spend all year sort of worrying about what United are going to do, and I've got much more of a vested interest in United than I have my international team. So I quite like watching the football where I want my country to do well, but I don't really feel the pressure of them doing well like I do like during the season with United, if you know what I mean.
I love tournament football. And I hate people that slander it and slag it off and, oh, it's not as good as club. Who cares that international football is not as good as club football? It's not. And more teams are realizing that to win to do well in tournaments, you have to be a bit more pragmatic. We saw that in the World Cup with France. They have so much talent that they could just let run loose in qualifying. But when you come to the tournament, and England, I think, are the same way. If you look at how they've been playing under Southgate, they're going to come and be more pragmatic, play within yourselves and do what you need to do to get the result. And it leads to a bit more boring games in a way, but everything else about the games, the fans, the weather's nice. You get people congregating outside and coming together, and it's so much fun. And I always say New York City is the best place to watch tournaments because you can find fans from any country there and be part of whatever game is going on. And it makes me a little skeptical for the World Cup in Qatar because of the fact that that's in the winter and you can't have those big congregations outside because it's freaking cold.
Well, Pauly, I think the reason I was so excited about this one as well is that I'm old enough to remember Euro 96. I remember it quite vividly. I was about 10 years old. Probably the first major tournament I remember with England, because for those of you who don't remember or don't know, England didn't qualify for USA 94. I actually remember watching quite a lot of the World Cup in 94 in the USA, and it was disappointing that England weren't there because I thought it was a great tournament for me. I loved watching it over. It's the first time I'd seen sort of football, soccer played out in America, and I thought that was a great tournament. But yeah, I feel Euro 96 just because obviously this isn't a Euros that's held in England, it's a Euros that's obviously held all around Europe, but from an England point of view,
being held in England.
Yeah, from an England point of view, if they go through the groups and the games the way they should do, barring any COVID issues as well, they should pretty much play all their games at home. Well, they will play all their games, obviously, at Wembley. So
6 out of 7.
Yeah. So that's why I'm really getting that Euro 96, and that was a fantastic tournament. I remember a little bit like 2018. The weather was great over here. There's a great vibe about that England team. It was a likeable England team. But I've got to be honest with you, Paul, that's the thing about this England team when I look at it. I don't want to talk too much about England because obviously we're going to talk about United. But from the England point of view in this tournament, there's a lot of players in this squad that I like. You know, I like them as players, and I also quite like a lot of the personalities as well. So I'm hoping that that sort of transfers into being a good tournament. England do really well. I am surprised to actually see that they're joint favourites with France with some bookmakers. I find that extraordinary, really, considering that France are world champions and that usually when it's a major tournament, England do what England do. But I think that obviously the bookies are taking into consideration the fact that England will play so many games at Wembley. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on that? And who are you fancying ahead of the tournament?
You're exactly right. And that's a testament to Gareth Southgate, who has really made it a point since he's taken over as coach to make sure this England team is likable and get that back. England had lost that relationship with their fans, and now that's kind of back, and you really felt that in 2018, and it is carrying over to now. I want to bring up this comment from Aditya, who said, watching international football be as slow as my Sunday league games and then seeing people complain about Pogba not being playing for United is infuriating. And the beginning part of that, you're 100% right, is international football does suck. It is bad. Tournaments are awesome. And that's the trade-off, is in order to get to the tournaments, we have to have those bad games in September and October and November to qualify for them. And qualifiers do suck, and watching friendlies suck. And the Nations League is better than friendlies, but in the grand context of things, it sucks too. All those games suck. But tournaments are awesome, and it's the necessary evil to get us there. We have to just accept them along with the tournament to get to our tournaments. England are joint favorites with France. France aren't heavy favorites, though, and part of that is their group. They have a very difficult group, but it's three teams are coming out of that. Actually, I wouldn't guarantee that three teams come out of that group. If you get a lot of draws, that could be a group where two teams go home because things don't break well.
Yeah.
But the fact that three teams can come out of the group, it takes something away from it. It takes it away from the group stage. The fact that Portugal in 2016 just uglied their way to winning. They didn't win a single game in 90 minutes. They didn't win a game in the group stage, and they got through. It's just ugly. It's disgusting.
That can be the issue with tournament football, can't it? But I don't think
that's the issue with 2014.
That could happen, but Portugal proved it.
For some reason, FIFA and UEFA and everybody just they just say, as long as we have an even number of teams, it's okay, and not like an even number of teams that goes into another. Like CONCACAF, the Gold Cup used to be 12 teams, and that was terrible. The Gold Cup is terrible because there's only two good teams in it, and then two more average teams, and everybody else is garbage. But you had something good with 16 teams. There was a difficulty in getting there. England didn't even get there in 2008, and then it's just a regular tournament. It's 4 teams per group, and it works. Now you got 24 teams, which is somewhere in the middle. At this point, you should go to 32, which will destroy qualifying, but who cares? It'll make the smaller nations will get better over time, and you'll get a 32-team tournament, which will work a lot better than it makes the group stage better. That's the problem with the Euros. Is that was the Euro 2016 would have been a great tournament if we didn't have that little thing that was missing from the group stage, and it took some of the spotlight away from the group stage. And this tournament is going to be interesting because of the fact that everybody is just flat out exhausted. And when you ask how I see this shaking up, I don't know. It's a very difficult one.
I tell you what, though, Pauly, when I look at it, and it might not turn out to be this way, and the games might not turn out to be this way, but I see a lot of good international teams playing in this tournament. I mean, everyone's talking about France and England, obviously joint favourites, but people are forgetting Belgium now. I know people might say that Belgium's time maybe have come and gone with that sort of generation, but they've still got quality players. That Portugal team is a lot of people's sort of underdog pick in terms of, it's got a very strong spine. The only problem with that Portugal team, what I see with my naked eye, is that it's got a lot of 100-year-old players in there. They're quite an old squad, an old team. And then you've got people like Germany and Spain. When it comes to major tournaments in the last 10 or 20 years, you can never rule them out. And it's like people aren't even talking about Germany and Spain, and they're just
you can't rule them out, but then sometimes they rule themselves out. I mean, 2014 Spain bounced in the group stage, as did Germany, and there's so many questions about Germany right now because they went in this direction after the World Cup where they wanted to get younger and move in the new generation, and I agreed with that decision, but it didn't look like they were ever going to form something coherent. And now Joachim Low is kind of just been like, oh, let's bring the old guys back. And how's that going to work? Yeah. Are they going to be reinvigorated, or is it going to be a repeat of 2018? That's a good question. Belgium, there's question marks over Belgium because De Bruyne is hurt. Hazard's been hurt all season. And yeah, I do think that they are a little bit too old. Alderweireld and Vertonghen are still the anchors of that defense, and they're way past their best days. Yeah. Italy's a nice little spicy team. They are a bit old, but people are sleeping on Italy. Spain, there's so many question marks that, and you look at, and I look at it this is how I look at the World Cup every year and the Euros, and I could tell you when I'll be like, look, this team, they're not going to win. They're not going to go far. Who could beat them? I don't know. Like it'd be crazy to predict like a Denmark over France, but that can happen. You get a free kick and you get a 1-0 and suddenly the game is stolen and it's 3 points. So like that kind of thing happens in international football. It'd be crazy to predict it, but I don't know. I think we have discussed this, and I do think that France is a year too late here, that your window kind of opens for 4 years, 3 tournaments, and France got there in 2016, then they won it in 2018, and if it was 2020, probably. But like you could tell that they're already not overthinking things, but worried by the fact that they're calling in Karim Benzema back because they need to change. It's not because Benzema had a great season. He's had great seasons every year for the last 5 years since he got kicked off the national team. Yeah. They're doing it because they understand we got to play a different way. And that's different. Is that going to work? So there's question marks all over the place. I think home field advantage might play huge in this game. Could Hungary pull off an upset against one of those teams because they play at home? And if that happens, that really changes that group of death. So I think home field advantage is going to be great. I think we're going to see a team that we were not expecting make it to the semifinals. Who put this up earlier? Right up here, wide dub. Denmark, Turkey, Scotland, Italy is underdog. Italy's an underdog to win the whole thing. Scotland or not. Scotland, I don't even think get out of the group. Get out of the group. Like Scotland had to go through the ringer just to qualify against not great teams. Denmark is interesting. I think Turkey can actually make a run. Turkey is a great team to think about. That when we get to the final 4 teams, Turkey might very well be there. Yeah. No, good job. Pauly, I put this up and I just thought before we move on, because we're going to talk about some Man United stuff. Look, taking the fact away that you are America, so I'm assuming that you are American, so your second team would normally be England. Forget England, Pauly. So maybe for you, your third team. If I'm answering this question, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Holland, Netherlands. Something about the Netherlands. I think growing up sort of in the 80s and 90s, this idea of total football and just the orange and the fans. And I've always thought that, well, taking out the 2010 World Cup final, I've always thought they're a nice team to watch, the Dutch side. And always thought they'd been unlucky not to win like a World Cup, with some of the great players. So I think my second international team has always been the Netherlands. I've found myself liking a lot of Dutch players as well. I don't know about you, Pauly. What about you? Yeah, no, I obviously my team is the United States, and then I very much support England. And then when it comes to, I don't have the bandwidth for a third team. I enjoy watching France because they have really good players. They have really good players right now. But that's something that's been around since 2016. I think around 2015, I was like, whoa, France is the dark horse to make the final and win this thing. And this was probably a year and a half out. And I thought I was ahead of the game there. And then the odds came out and it was like, oh, they're like second favorites. And I'm like, great. I'm not that smart. But I like watching them because they have good players right now. I liked watching Germany at the beginning of the decade because they had good players. I don't like people throw out Portugal. I've never really liked Portugal for some reason. I'm the same. I've always found them quite negative, Pauly, and quite a dirty team as well, and quite sneaky, and just like not cheats, but like they've got that side, a nasty side to them, but not appealing to watch, if you know what I mean. The old Portugal teams, And I think that disappointed me about France. at the World Cup was that they played within themselves, but they still were entertained because they played Belgium, which was a fun, good game. They played Argentina, which was an unbelievable, possibly the game of the tournament, either France and Argentina or maybe Brazil and Belgium. So they were very entertaining as much as they were playing within themselves. I don't like, but Italy is a team that always has good players, but then they're just that defensive lock. And this Italian team, this current Italian team, is not your traditional Italian team. So they should be more fun. I never really liked Spain because it just looked like Barcelona, but without Messi. So it always looked like they were just missing something, and they just choked the hell out of the match. And I know that they won Euro 2012 like 4-0 in the final, I think. But I don't really remember that game. I don't. Yeah. I like watching good. I like watching when upstart teams, come on and give you a scare, and who's the current star and who's going to grab the tournament and who's the one hit wonder. Like 2016, Dimitri Payet had that one good year, came on, won a few games for France, and a year later was just never heard from again. Like those are the kind of players that you enjoy watching in the tournament.
Germany. I think the thing with Germany, I mean, obviously being an Englishman and an England fan, you're never going to pick Germany as second team. But one thing I'll always say about Germany is that I've never really found them appealing to watch. But I have utmost respect for the fact that they always seem to, with the exception of 2018, which was really phenomenal for me, because in my lifetime, the first time I'd ever seen a poor Germany team at a major tournament. The thing that I always respect about Germany is, regardless of the players that they've got and where they are at the time, they always seem to be ready for a major tournament. Their preparation, it's just a German thing. The way that they're organised and everything's mechanic and it's machine-like, and you've got to respect that, the fact that they peak at the right times for these major tournaments, and they're always there and thereabouts, and that for me deserves respect.
Yeah, they're a tournament team. And I'm just I'm excited for this. I'm excited to have tournament football back. I'm excited to go. And now that all the bars are not only indoors, but outdoors too. It's, hey, imagine not going to the bar at 3:00 for a football match. Couldn't be me. I'm a little worried about the quality of play because, again, 24 teams means instead of having 16 teams meant we had about 13, 14 really good teams and 2 teams that were good to be there. And now we've got 24 teams, two of which came through the Nations League in those bottom teams. So who knows what's going on with them. But, we have 15, 16 good teams and a couple of less good teams. So the quality and just the fact that every player is freaking exhausted right now. How intense are these games going to be? Not every stadium is going to be filled. Is it going to be a team, teams just sitting back and waiting for a set piece to decide these matches? That worries me, but whatever. We got football. It'll be fun. It's going to be a fun summer.
Yeah, no, it is. Aditya, I mean, this comment it's a problem in itself, this comment. You say England for you because of United. Well, my issue has been that United have signed England players for the sake of it in the past anyway, and that's been a problem over the years.
But I get what he's saying, because like when I was growing up, it was a natural, like you rooted for, if you were an American and United fan, you rooted for England because you were rooting for your players. You had Ferdinand and Rooney and Scholes, Neville, Beckham, like all those players came, you just wanted to keep watching them. So it was an easy transition. It's less so much now, although there's still Maguire and Rashford. But yeah, I understand that there is a difference with the England and United.
It's interesting as well, the dynamic between Manchester United and England fans, Pauly, because Manchester United, there's probably been surveys on this, but the proportion of England fans who enjoy watching England for each club, if you know what I mean. I do feel like United fans, a lot of them couldn't care less about England, but it's interesting because I think it stems from the fact that players have been made scapegoats at previous tournaments, and a lot of that's been United. Obviously, David Beckham in '98, I think that turned a lot of United fans off of supporting England, you know what I mean? And there's been other players in the past. We know Paul Scholes has always sort of got a lot of criticism in an England shirt because he was played out of position, but again, he was made scapegoats in tournaments as well when he was, like I say, because he was played out of position. it's a difficult relationship, United fans and supporting England. You don't seem to get a lot of United fans that care about England, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that plays into it, but I think there's more than that because it's not just United fans, it's Liverpool fans too, and Chelsea fans and Arsenal fans. And it just comes from when you look at England games and you see the flags and how people write where they're from on the flags, you don't see Manchester, you don't see Liverpool, you don't see North London. Because it's fans from smaller cities who don't have those. United fans know we've got our competitions every year, and we've got a chance to compete on the big stage. We go to Europe, and for players who are fans of Rotterdam or Carlisle United or any other team that we enjoy when they get to play in the fourth round of the FA Cup. This is their chance to travel and go around Europe and have their big days. So they are the bigger England fans.
It's perspective, isn't it, Pauly? Like to a Manchester United fan, England will look a poor team, but to a League Two, League One side, England are a great side and much better to watch than what they normally watch week in, week out, aren't they? So, they're great. Look, before we move on then, Pauly, just a quick one. There'll be some people watching here probably who might be still thinking about where to put their tenner on in terms of who's going to win this, who's your pick for this Euros. I'm going to say, if I was putting a tenner on it today, I would probably go Italy because of the value and because I feel that they could actually do it as well. I don't know what's your thoughts.
It's not fair. You just stole
you
stole my. Not only did you steal my pick, you stole the reason too. And I will say this: I already put the tenner on it yesterday.
There you go.
On Italy to win because of the value. I put the tenner on Italy to win, and then I put a little bit on Italy and Portugal to both make the semifinals.
Okay, interesting bet. No, well, look, we both said Italy, Pauly, so if Italy don't win it now, it'll be an absolute miracle. If you're watching, guys, and you want to have a bet,
or if Italy do win it, it'll be an absolute miracle.
Yeah. It depends how you look at it. It depends how you view me and Pauly. You either think they're a stick on now or you think you're going to avoid them at all costs. Probably more the latter, to be honest. Right, let's move on to Manchester United, Pauly, because there has been some news, obviously. And today, funny enough, they knew the happy hour was coming back, and it seems like there's been news every day, but it seems to have made more sort of like the national media today, and people starting to talk a bit more about negotiations. Jadon Sancho, Pauly. Now, I did a lot of shows with you last summer where we talked. The shows we were doing when we first started working together were very transfer orientated anyway. So, we did a lot of this and we talked a lot about this. And you always had interesting opinions on what would happen with Jadon Sancho last summer. And a lot of it, it turned out you were right. I feel like you've got a different feel about this deal this summer.
Ultimately, it turned out I was very wrong.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. But look, I'm struggling to remember what people said. As you can remember, Pauly, we did lots of transfer shows. It felt like it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. It looked like it was inevitable, and then it all started petering out at the end. This year, it does feel different. Today, obviously, we're hearing that United have put in a bid. It's not being accepted, which is usual when you go in with your first official bid. Very rarely do they get accepted straight away. But you've obviously done some podcasts recently. You've talked to people. I'm sort of reading between the lines what I'm seeing in the social media. And I just feel this year the difference for me, Pauly, is that there's a will on every party to get this done. I don't think Dortmund really wanted to sell last year. And United certainly didn't really want to spend over 100 million on Jadon Sancho. Whereas this year, United really want to sort of pay the valuation. Dortmund want to sell, and obviously the player wants to come. That's probably the only thing that is the same as last year.
Yeah, that's really what it was. It was United did work out the personal details with him last year. He wanted to come. Yeah. I spoke to people who knew things that work in football on more the player side, and that was what I gathered was this. All that will happen now, like all that needs to happen is working out the financials, and United started balking when Dortmund wanted an extraordinary amount of money up front as opposed to in installments. There were other factors. Bayern called Dortmund out before the summer and basically said, you obviously we win the Bundesliga every year because you keep selling your best players. And Dortmund wanted to say, oh, that's not true anymore. So they wanted to hold him. And as soon as the season started, they realized this was a bad idea because Sancho was not happy at the beginning of the season. He wasn't performing. And it was clear that he didn't have his mind in it. And he really turned it on towards the end of the season, maybe, for the Euros, spurned on by Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher being like, not in my team. Or maybe just, maybe he was injured or whatever. Mm. But United started to balk last year when there was that uncertainty, when the way things were going towards, as we were in Project Restart over the summer, things were getting better. That was okay. We're now playing football again, and let's keep going. And it looks like we're going to have fans back next year. We were talking about fans back by October. And when you have to borrow money, when you're spending your transfer money, you are borrowing money against your future revenue. If I buy something off you for £15, I only have £3 right now, but I know that over the next few months, income is going to come in through these ticket sales and everything that I will have that money. You can't borrow off your future revenues if you don't know what your future revenues are going to be. If you say fans are coming back in October, great. That means we lose 2 months of revenue. Oh, but what if they don't come back till December? That only goes 4. And what if they don't come back at all? And as things got closer and closer to the deadline, United kind of realized we're not coming back in October. And they did balk, and they didn't want to spend that money. And because spending that money could have tied them up and put them in a bad place, or it could have worked out brilliantly. We don't know because we only know what happened. But not doing a bad deal is better than doing a bad deal. Yeah. And Dortmund were not lowering their asking price. And United basically said he's not going to be worth as much next year because at a certain point, everybody's going to feel this hit and they're going to need the money. And eventually Jadon Sancho, I do remember at the very end saying it's going to come down to, will Jadon Sancho cause a stink and force the move through? And he didn't. And we're at the point now where the two teams are actually talking to each other. They were never talking to each other last year. So there is this desire from every party, all three parties, that they need to get this move through. One from United because they didn't do anything last year. Their books are a bit better. They have the ability to spend some money. Two, because they really hung Ollie out to dry last summer. And what did he do? Improved. And now if you want to get further, Ollie's going to look at them and say, if you want to get further, I've taken this squad as far as it can go. If you want to improve further, we need better players. We need the players that I've been telling you we need. And then there's the whole Super League thing where now, the owners feel like they have to make things up to the fans, and good on that. So they're determined to spend it, but at the same time, they're not determined to take a bad deal. They're not determined to spend more money than they have to. And teams this is classic negotiation. As you said, their first bid was denied. Right. Because that's what normally happens. We're going to go lower. We're going to say higher. We're going to meet in the middle. Or we're going to meet somewhere on one side. They'll end up meeting somewhere closer to the Dortmund side, hopefully, to get it done. But you have to get it done. Will it come? It could possibly once again come down to Sancho having to push a move through. And he might do that. He's not going to do that right now because he's in England camp. And if he starts acting up and saying things, he'll be sent right home. Gareth Southgate is going to be like, your mind isn't here, so goodbye. I don't need you. Yeah. And so and that's also, once we got to, I'd say the beginning of this week, you're not going to get a chance for Jadon Sancho to break away for a day to take a medical and do a thing. So even if they work out this fee right now, I think maybe you'll see them work out a fee in the next week. And then Sancho will sign a day or two after this tournament comes to an end, and then he'll go on holiday.
I've seen ridiculous tweets and people getting all things saying that this can't happen during the Euros. Look, I understand that we're not going to see Jadon Sancho holding the shirt up, confirmed, done. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, because United's new shirt's not even out yet. So the first picture of Jadon Sancho has to be in the new United shirt anyway, so don't worry about that. But this idea that United and Dortmund can't get some sort of agreement while the Euros are going on, I know that Jadon Sancho won't be released for medical, that's fine, but you could have something where an agreement's been reached and the deal will be done pending a medical, won't it, Pauly? That's how it works. And I mean, you also have to add into the mix, look, I don't know how much playing time Jadon Sancho is going to get in this tournament, but he could get injured as well, and that could obviously have an impact upon any deal. So, look, but I don't think that basically we get to Friday or Saturday and everything has to shut down for 4 weeks. I don't believe that at all. There's no reason why the clubs can't get something in place so that it's ready to go. Like I say, like you said, maybe a couple of days after the tournament, then Jadon Sancho can be holding and shirt and it's all confirmed.
Yeah, and United know that they need to do something along this magnitude. I'm pretty confident they'll get this deal done. Yeah, they know that they need to do something along with this magnitude. I mean, Pogba's pulling like a Rooney and being like, I want to be assured of how serious this club is being before I sign a new contract. And Bruno has already, United started negotiating with Bruno like a year ago. Basically, Bruno was here for a hot second and United went, well, you don't make enough money. And they've already been negotiating with Bruno. And Bruno has already said, I am not signing a new contract for now until Paul Pogba signs a new contract. He doesn't want to sign a new contract and then have a situation where Pogba leaves and you're questioning the commitment of the club to replace him and bring new players in. So suddenly, if you're a club determined to build something here and you've put all these pieces in place, and now the pieces are saying, hey, we're going to leave unless you add more pieces, you need to add more pieces. Yeah.
Look, Pauly, for me, look, just before we move on, because I'm going to sort of blend this into Paul Pogba, the Sancho thing for me, I think when all this is said and done, and I can't wait for it to be done because it's probably one of the longest, it feels like one of the longest sagas ever, Pauly. It needs to be over. But for me, when
can I introduce you to David De Gea? Talking about a saga that never ended.
Yeah, there is that. If United get Sancho for this sort of report around about £80 million, look, we'll look back on last year and think, I think United will have won this, Pauly, because a year's gone by. It's not been Sancho's greatest year in terms of form and fitness and everything that goes with that. They've got a player for much less than they were going to pay next year. And actually, when you look at United's season finishing second, I'm not sure how much more they would have done with Jadon Sancho in that team. You could argue he might have been enough for him maybe to get to the knockout stages of the Champions League. And then I know that there's money that comes with that. And I suppose there's an argument there. But I don't think he would have taken us from second to first when you look at how far we ended up finishing behind Man City and the way that the season went. So actually, by the time this is done, when we look back, it won't have been the worst thing in the world that United didn't get this done last year, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think you could certainly say, well, Jadon Sancho makes them better to get to the next round. But then you look at the games, we didn't lose against PSG because of a lack of right winger. Martial missed that chance, but Rashford's not a great finisher. Give Rashford that chance. There's no guarantee that he buries it. And we lost because we didn't have the depth in midfield. We couldn't take Fred off before he got sent off. And we conceded that goal on the set piece, and Alex Telles didn't mark his man at the back post 6 minutes into the match. And then against Leipzig, we didn't lose that match because we didn't have a right wing. We lost that match in the middle of maybe we don't have to play a back three if we have Jadon Sancho, but we still have to play Matic and McTominay. Now, maybe if we have Jadon Sancho, that's already a commitment to Pogba that we're building in the right direction, and maybe Mino Raiola doesn't open his mouth that week, and maybe then Paul Pogba can start next to Matic or McTominay, and we don't have to play that pair. There's a butterfly effect for a million things here, but we didn't lose that match because we lacked the right winger up front. We lost that match in the midfield and at the back. We didn't lose the match. We put every creative player we had on the pitch against Istanbul. They were just sitting deep and we were a disorganized mess. Does Jadon Sancho help that? I don't know. there's going to be games like that. So yeah, you like to think that if we had Jadon Sancho, it goes differently and we go to the knockout round, but I don't know if we do. And in the meantime, we got answers to some things this season, and we got more experience for our players, and overall we got better. Like that's the main line. And now next year we can look at players and we bring players in and we say, okay, Marcus, like we want you to do what you did last year, but like we're not putting the weight of the team on your back. And we have the ability for Rashford to take a rest. And this is something that we spoke about with Carl Anka of The Athletic on the podcast this week. And what Carl was saying was,
Pauly, just signpost people to that podcast. We have had a couple of people asking where they can see it. Well, not see it because it's just sound, isn't it? It's audio. But can you just signpost people to where it is, mate?
Yeah, it's on the busbybabe.com. It's right on the homepage. It's on app. I tweeted it yesterday, and I'll tweet it again probably when part 2 comes out, whenever that is. I think tomorrow. It is on Apple and Spotify as well. Just search for the Busby Babe podcast. I highly recommend. It's the most, no offense to you, Joe, it is the most enjoyable podcast that I've ever done in my life. I just sat there and shut up for 2 hours and just watching Carl speak and watching the way his brain works and how smart he is and how he describes everything and really puts it into a perspective that you can understand. Like his analogies were just fantastic. And when we spoke about this Rashford thing, it's a testament to the disorganization of United and how there's a lot of backroom issues that are getting fixed, but they're not fixed yet. And the lack of recruitment in that Rashford has looked around is that, one, Ollie can't trust other players, and 2, Rashford doesn't trust other players. So there's never been a point where Rashford could say, where if I don't do the job, you could do it. And therefore he's always felt I can play and I can contribute to this team. So he always wants to play. And if you had a player who came in and was scoring goals off that left side, that when Rashford's got a bum ankle and he needs 3 weeks off, he has the ability to say, you know what, boss, like I think I'm good right now, but I can be really good if we just let this heal up and don't let it get worse. And United haven't had that opportunity because they just don't have anybody else.
Yeah. Guys, if you're watching, Pauly might be telling you right now that he prefers to do it with Carl Anka, but that's not what he's telling me when we're off camera. You know, he's asking me every day to be doing a podcast, guys. I'm one of his most favourite people in the world, but he's not going to admit that on here. Obviously, I don't blame him. So now I'm only joking. Now I need to listen to it, so I will give it a listen. I'm looking forward to listening out. Let's move on to Paul Pogba because we have got some other things we want to get through, Pauly. And the reason I'm coming up with Paul Pogba now is because I saw a tweet today. I don't know who's put it out there. I think I saw it on United Report, but obviously I'm not quite sure the origin of the tweet. But it's interesting about the news breaking about Paul Pogba contract extension talks as this Jadon Sancho deal's getting closer. And somebody did tweet something about Paul Pogba liking the idea of linking up with a Jadon Sancho and the fact that maybe if he sees that deal's getting done, there's potential for other players coming in like Raphael Varane, who's a French teammate of his. If he's starting to see these deals happening, I'm not going to talk too much about other players coming in, but that might be now why we're hearing that contract extension talks are on the table. I don't know what you think, but it's just the timing of it all. I found it quite interesting that came out today as this deal seems to be getting closer.
Yeah, I like when people think like this. Like, oh, Pogba's seeing the news and the rumors, like, oh, Raphael Varane, like, Pogba could text Raphael Varane and be like, you coming to United? And he'll be like, yeah. And he'll tell him, oh, like, probably not. Or, you know, we're working on it, but like or I'm trying to get a better contract. And the same way, like last year, like, you know, there was that time last season where Rashford gave that interview and talked about linking up with Jadon Sancho. And it's because they had worked out the personal details, and Rashford knows that. He talks to Sancho every day. So he would know what's going on. Sancho is, when it comes to working out the fee, Sancho is just as out of the loop as everybody else. He'll text his agent every day and be like, have they worked out the fee? And the agent will be like, we're working on it.
What's going on?
We're working on it. But in terms of, oh, we've got the personal details, like Yeah, the players are.
David De Gea sat in a hotel room waiting for a fax machine to work. Tells you all you need to know about how transfer works, isn't it, Pauly? You know what I mean?
Again, I will go to my grave saying that David De Gea was in on the fax machine debacle. But that's for another time. Like, so
that's why I love bringing it up.
Pogba's got a pulse of the, you know, when you hear these rumors, even if he does hear the rumor, like Pogba, whether it's Varane, who is his national league teammate, or someone else, he's got the ability to make one or two phone calls to someone and get an answer of, is this real? Is this person actually coming or no? So, but I do think that there is some element of truth to this, though. Like, it's not just the news. It's he is tapped in with the other players and asking and getting that kind of information. I also think it's just he looks around and goes, like I've always said, he doesn't want to leave Manchester United, but if Real Madrid came calling, he would go there. And it is a question of money. He wants to be paid really well. That's why his agent is Mino Raiola, whose first, second, third, and fourth concerns are money.
Yeah.
He's looking around now and going, well, where else can I go? Real Madrid are kind of in disarray. Like, do you want to go there? And they don't have money. So can they pay me? Juventus are a bigger mess. Can they pay me? Do I want to go there? Or do I look at this team here where we've got a manager that I have a great relationship with and all the players enjoy playing for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Pogba is a big figure in the dressing room. He's got a lot of friends at United. And he looks around and says, we've got a good young team here. We didn't really add many pieces last year and we got better. So if we're now going to add pieces, this might be the place for me. And also, they don't have to pay a transfer fee for me. So I could probably get the most money here.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. The whole 5 years Pogba's been here, Paulie, I do feel for him because I feel all he's ever wanted is to get the feeling that this is a Manchester United team that's serious about winning, that is successful. I think if we'd have shown that over these last 5 years in the way that we've gone about it on the pitch and also the way we've invested, I don't think we'd be having this worry about him signing a new contract. I think it would have been done a couple of years ago at least. But you can understand his situation, boy. I mean, this is a serious player. You've only got to listen to him in interviews. This is a guy who just loves winning. I mean, he's even saying, someone asked him about France winning the World Cup. What can beat that? And he was like, winning it again. You know what I mean? This is what this guy, he's got that sort of mentality. And although I know what you're saying, boy, it's not always about like who's coming and everything like that. But a player needs to see that a club's serious and that a club can win things if they're gonna if that's what they want their career to do. Some players just want to be happy playing football. Footballers have different reasons for playing the game, but a lot of players want to win. You've seen it with Harry Kane now. I think a lot of people just thought Harry Kane played football because of the individual accolades, because of scoring goals, and therefore he's all right at Tottenham because he'll score goals. But you're seeing now, even with him, is a player here that wants to start winning trophies, and I think that's what it is with Paul Pogba. All he wants is to be in a serious football team who can challenge for the top honours, and you can't blame him for that, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned something at the beginning in the first 5 years of Paul Pogba, and like we've never seen the full picture or whatever. And this was Carl. When I spoke to Carl this week, he gave the best description of Manchester United I've ever heard. And he was using it about Donny van de Beek, but it applies to Pogba and it applies to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. Is Manchester United are essentially a startup company. If you've ever worked at a startup company, if you've ever been in corporate America, or just the corporate world, you know how companies are. There's a person to talk to forever. There's a person sitting at the desk when you walk in. There's the reception, there's HR, there's this department, there's account, there's all these different departments. Then you go to a startup and you get there and it's, can I speak to the HR person? And they kind of go, oh, we don't really have that. We, talk to Joe, he takes care of it, but your job is something else. You just also have HR put on your plate. And everybody's wearing a million different hats and nothing, he basically said, it's like Van de Beek walks in and says, what's the Wi-Fi password? And someone goes, oh, we don't have Wi-Fi. We just all hotspot our phones. That's United. It's so disorganized that started after Ferguson, because basically they were disorganized before Ferguson left, but Ferguson did everything because he was a micromanager and he was the guy. And then he left and it was like, wait, and we were wasting with what, like one guy. And when we failed to realize this is a job for 50 people and he just did it all. And and then we replaced that with one guy, and everybody had different things. And Van Gaal came in and changed things. And then Mourinho came in and stripped out Van Gaal's changes. And it's so disorganized that we hired that, like, essentially we brought in Pogba to do something. We said, we love what you did at Juventus and we want you to come and do it for us. Yeah. And we'll use the analogy of basically being like a writer, writing the things that I write, where I'm writing about the game and I'm putting out GIFs and to illustrate the point, and then we're tweeting it out and doing all that. And you can't do it all. And United are kind of like, why aren't you doing it all? And he's like, well, like at Juventus, I had Pirlo, I had the other guy. I wrote my notes, and then someone went and created the graphics for me, and someone went and created the GIFs, and there was a graphic design team and an advertising team to put it out. And I did what I'm good at, which is the writing. And United want him to do everything, which is not easy. And I remember just discussing this at the beginning of the season when people were talking about Solskjaer, and it was, he was hired to do a job and he's not doing it. And if you don't perform at work, you get fired. And it's like, not quite. It's more like if you get hired at an entry-level position, like if you get hired for entry-level sales, you go in, you got to make a certain number of calls a day. You got to sell make a certain number of sales a week. If you don't hit your quotas, you're going to get fired. It's really cut and dry. Now, Solskjaer's not getting hired for that entry-level position. He's coming in and they're saying, we want to start a new division. We want to start a cybersecurity division.
And we want to build with you, your development and the club development. We want to grow together, sort of thing. No, hand in hand.
So they're basically saying, we're going to hire you to be the head of the cybersecurity division. Yeah. Come in and we're going to build you a team. And Ollie comes in and says, okay, I'm going to need 15 laptops. I'm going to need 9 analysts. Like, we're going to have to bring these people in. And the company says, we'll bring in 4. And then they wonder, why aren't you getting the results that you got at your old job, or they're comparing you to the guy in the office next door who's at a bigger company who has 21 analysts. And he's like, well, you brought in 4 and I told you I need 5 more and you didn't give them to me. That's kind of the whole picture here of what it is. And for United, they never gave Pogba the other tools that he needs, and he could do it all. He can defend. He can do this, he can do that, but when he's doing everything, it's pulling away from his bandwidth to do what he's best at.
And the funny thing is, Pauly, it's probably only in these last 12 months he's felt like the club can give him what he needs. And funny enough, that's probably the closest he's looked to being a long-term United player, isn't it? And it's no coincidence that in the last 12, 18 months to 2 years is when United have actually looked like they've got a plan and an idea. It's in that time frame where Pogba's looked the most likely to stay at Manchester United.
Right. And then you go to the other side. So, like, you never gave you basically you hired Pogba to do something and didn't tell him, like, oh, by the way, you're going to have to do everything.
Yeah.
On the other side, you bring in a Bruno Fernandes who kind of has a chip on his shoulder, in that it's taken him a while and he's been looked down upon. He wants to show everybody what he can do. And he comes in and basically says, oh, I used to be working for this company where I just made the GIFs. I watched the game and I cut it up and made the GIFs, but I could do more. I could do more than that. I could do graphic design, and I've got thoughts. I want to be able to write and put my thoughts out there. So you need someone so I'll just do everything. I'll just do everything myself. And that was perfect for him. And but now you look at him and you see, like, he's been doing everything himself, and look at how tired he looks, because you just don't have you've shown everybody you can do it. Okay, we should have given this guy who is at that level, and he never got promoted, and he wanted to show, I can do so much more than this. You're right, you can, but you're going to burn out if you keep doing everything. So now you want to get him and Pogba on the same team and get them the graphic designer and get them so that they don't have to do everything.
I always think the dynamic between Pogba and Bruno is a really interesting one because I think they enjoy playing together. But I can't help but feel that Pogba's that guy who looks at Bruno Fernandes and thinks to himself, God, if this club was only where it's at now when I came. Because we've seen Bruno come in and he's hit the ground running. But for me, Pauly, the whole thing about the club and the atmosphere at the club makes it so much easier for Bruno to come and have that impact the way that he has because of where the club is at now as a football club. This football club wasn't there when Paul Pogba signed. And I bet Paul Pogba thinks to himself, Bruno's getting all these plaudits and Bruno's doing this brilliant. Oh, what an impact he's had on the team. And Pogba might be thinking, well, if only the club was like this when I came, and if only it had the players here that are here now when I came, maybe I could have had this impact upon my return, if you know what I mean. There must be that kind of, not bitterness, but it's almost like an envy, if you know what I mean, well, it's all right, Bruno, don't get too carried away because this is a much better place to be now than when I came. So before you start getting too carried away, just know that you've come into a much better club than what I did.
Right. And look, when they signed Pogba, they went backwards, not by signing Pogba, but just with the Mourinho sign, City were going with Pep, Liverpool had just hired Klopp, and everybody was getting their shit together. And we were going with Mourinho, who came in and said, take that tracking data out, get that out. Like, I don't need that. I don't want that. And it's like, everybody's going in this direction. That's the way football is going, and you're going the other way. And that holds you back. But Pogba was this. He came with that price tag that everybody thought he's going to do everything, and he's going to be the engine that makes everything work. Except the pieces around him weren't there. And then last season, especially when Pogba went out, and all of a sudden you look and you kind of see like that Solskjaer had built this foundation here, where we had all the pieces around everything. We didn't have the engine. And you had this Bruno-sized hole that was perfect for a player that fit the exact profile of Bruno. Like if you talk to any stats person, analyst who's not a United fan and talk to them about Bruno Fernandes, they aren't as high on Bruno as United fans are, but they will be the first to admit, like, Bruno is in the most perfect situation for Bruno. Like, United needed a player of exactly Bruno Fernandes. It's a
perfect storm.
And that's why he was able to step right into the team and perform right away. And then as soon as Pogba came back, he was performing too, because it's like, oh, wait, now we have a dual engine and pieces. And I don't have to be the sole engine and the piece.
Exactly, yeah. And look, it's like I said, Paul, to sum it up, Paul Pogba, when he came to the club, you had people pulling in 20 different directions. Now Bruno comes to the club. By the time he joined, everybody's pulling in the same direction, and it just makes it very difficult. The club's a much different and better place when Bruno signed than when Paul did five years ago. So I'm going to move on quickly, Paul, because we've only got a few minutes left. And I know you just wanted to touch on the awards. I found the awards this year in the Premier League and in England very
ridiculous, right?
Very weird awards. I mean, Man City seemed to clean up, sort of thing, and it's probably been their least impressive title win.
Yeah, but like usually the team that wins the title, they do clean up the awards.
Yeah,
because people don't think hard enough. People don't think hard enough. They just go, well, you won, so clearly you were the best.
How many times do you hear people say about, a manager who has brought a team up and they managed to get maybe top half in the first season, or he's my manager of the year, but for a fact he's never going to get it, is it? Like, people aren't imaginative enough to give it to those kind of people. I mean, what's your thoughts on these? I mean, obviously Pep Guardiola won the...
What did you think of Pep Guardiola winning?
Well, like I said, Paulie, I understand, like you said, because it always seems to go to the guy who wins the league. But I'll be honest with you, out of all the titles that Pep Guardiola's won in England, or probably anywhere in his career, this has probably been the least convincing. I mean, until Christmas, they weren't great at all. And then they flicked a bit of a switch. Obviously, a few players came into form, and I suppose you have to take credit for that. The other thing I'd say about Pep Guardiola, it doesn't really come into consideration when you're talking about Premier League Manager of the Year. They were on for a quadruple at one point. They've ended up pretty much with a crappy double. And it won't get talked enough about. I thought he was very poor tactically in that Champions League final, but we haven't had time to talk about this. But I thought the Champions League final was another example of just Pep just trying to overcomplicate things. I mean, you got Ilkay Gundogan.
Chelsea, you played Chelsea three times. You played Chelsea three times in like the last 5 weeks, and they beat you with the same tactics all 3 times.
Yeah, and you have a situation where you always play Rodri or Fernandinho in the game, or sometimes you play both.
There's nothing that Pep loves more than to overthink the Champions League.
Exactly. And we saw it with Leon. We saw it with Leon, didn't we, the year before last year?
And Grace Robertson wrote like this amazing article, 4-part article at the start of the season that broke down every single in-depth year of Pep and how he overthought things in the Champions League, going back to Barcelona.
Yeah.
The manager of the year is tough because look, sometimes there are times where you want to look at a guy like David Moyes, who did more with less, and even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who didn't get any transfers and improved his team, and they were second best over everybody. And Brendan Rodgers is in there again, but Brendan Rodgers, I think you throw right out because look, he did the same thing as he did last year. They got one more point. And that's it. And they collapsed. They did everything they could to throw it away. I do think Solskjaer did a better job than Pep, because he took a team that did not have reinforcements, that was not a deep team at all, and brought them to second place over much more talented teams. Sometimes that's the best manager and sometimes, the guy who won the league really did the best freaking job. But my initial thought when I saw this was, that's kind of, that's just lazy. Pep had the best team and the most depth in a season where depth was the most important thing. And he didn't blow teams away. He just won because he had the depth to do it.
It's been a poor season all round, point. And I think if there was ever going to be a season where you were going to use your imagination and give it a wild card, give it a manager like a David Moyes who did defy expectation, I think this was the season to do it, because I don't think Pep Guardiola was standout. I'm not taking anything away from some of their form post-Christmas was fantastic, and they deserve to win the league. Nothing about that. And I'm looking at Kevin De Bruyne as well.
Well, hold on 1 second.
Yeah, carry on.
So that was my initial thought was, he walked to the league because he had the deepest team, and that's what should happen. And then I thought, if you remove Pep and replace him with replace him with Frank Lampard, do City win the league? And my answer
this
goes
season, probably they do.
My answer goes from they definitely win the league to they probably win the league. But it's not definite. And that I think is worth something. And there is the argument that, look, City it wasn't like Pep threw out the bag of balls and said, hey guys, you're better than these guys. Go out there and play all season. No, he really reined them in a way to say, this is how we're going to be able to maximize our output for the entire season and how we're going to be able to play. And look, they competed on 4 fronts. They made the champions. They lost a bunch of finals, but they made the semifinals of the FA Cup. They made the Champions League final. It's not easy to do that in a season where everyth's so condensed, to play midweek every single week.
Well, we said that about
he did a good job.
Getting semis. Yeah,
he did change his tactical approach to preserve the energy of his team. So it's not like City didn't win they did win the league because they are better and deeper, but they're also played a strategy that would allow them to really maximize that depth.
Yeah. And if any of you got any doubts about just how complicated did make it, have a look on Twitter, because there are some quotes coming out today from Ilkay Gundogan, who's done a press conference, who's basically taken quite a lot of responsibility for that final, saying that I didn't perform well, but at the same time he does kind of chuck his manager under the bus. He does mention that Pep Guardiola came to him a few days before the final with a different set of instructions to what he's asked to be the whole season. Yeah.
They said the same thing after Leon. The players were confused.
Yeah.
So the Pep one, ultimately, I could see the argument for Pep. Ruben Diaz being the actual Premier League player of the season I think we've talked about this off the air. That's just that's for the papers and the fans to sell. they got good defensively. Let's blame it. Let's attribute the credit on because they signed an expensive player, and let's not pay attention to the fact that Pep made his entire team more defensive to protect his back four. Yeah. The interesting one that I thought was Kevin De Bruyne. Everybody said, Kane led the league in goals and assists. The assists, I think, were a bit of a false number because at the beginning of the season, he's just hitting the ball for Son. But
he is a number 9. He is a number 9. So yes, it's an impressive number of assists, to be fair.
It was, but again, he had 4 assists in like the second game of the year because he just kept hitting the ball to Son running in behind. It was he did his job really well, which led to him getting assists. I wouldn't call him a creative. I don't think he all of a sudden developed this creative side to his game. He's always been more creative than we give him credit for.
And I think it's something you'll see as he gets older as well, Paul.
Yes.
He's got a lot of
similarities. A lot of similarities to Rooney. But so should he have won it? Probably. Yeah, he probably was the best player in the league this year. But Kevin De Bruyne coming out of nowhere to win the PFA thing, I think that one was interesting because remember, that's voted on by players. And it's interesting to see why. You want to ask why. What about it that the player, because remember when the year Mourinho got fired and Pogba went on a tear for 8 weeks or something, and he was in the PFA team of the year, and everyone's like, he wasn't on good. He was terrible the first half of the year, which, by the way, he wasn't, but he wasn't as good as he was in that stretch. But it's voted on by their peers, so it's what are these players seeing? It's the players were basically like, well, playing against Paul Pogba was impossible. He was,
that's what they're saying. And I get that.
And so I get that's the question that I want to ask. And I don't think you or I will have the answer. I just think in terms of that,
you have to play against him probably to appreciate him more, haven't you, Pauly? It's his all-round. Because the incredible thing about Kevin De Bruyne is I think his stats are exactly the same as Timo Werner's. I think he's got the same goals and assists as Timo, but albeit I think Timo's played 10 more games than Kevin De Bruyne. But I think they've got, and everybody looks at Timo Werner's season this year and you wouldn't be impressed at all, obviously. So, yeah, very sort of strange. But I think, like you say, Paul, it's not the goals and assists. It's when you're playing against him. It's just the way it must be so difficult to pick up. Right. Must be difficult.
Argue about the PWA and the actual Premier League Player of the Season award all you want, but the PFA, I think I'm more interested in knowing what about it. So the players are valuing something else more than they're valuing, those goals and the assists that Kane did and everything. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about.
I wonder whether Kevin De Bruyne is assist for an assist. I wonder what his numbers are like on that, Paul. People look at that now, don't they? The assist for the assist numbers. I don't know what you call
Bruno
it.
Bruno had a ridiculous season. If they actually counted second assists as an official stat, they'd have already built a statue of Bruno outside of Old Trafford.
See, Bruno's an interesting one. He had that award on lockdown up until Christmas, didn't he, Paulie? And then I think obviously his form unfortunately just tailed away in the second half of the season. He's just caught up with him all the games. But look, we have run out of time, Paulie. It's been great to do this. I feel like it's been way too long, mate. We had a bit of a break, but obviously the Euros are coming up. We will obviously be in touch on Twitter and stuff when we are doing shows. I can't tell you right now whether we will be on Tuesday and Thursday or even once a week, but we'll definitely be on at some point during this tournament. It'll be good actually to have a chat about what's going on there. There will always be news with United. People are suggesting that it'll all go quiet now with the clubs. The clubs will still be talking and we're still going to hear news. United aren't going to be overshadowed by a major tournament either. I think you put a tweet out about if a team ever would like to upstage a major tournament by announcing a transfer, it's probably United, isn't it? So it's not going to stop. I don't think it's going to stop. It can't stop. United do need other players this summer. That's one thing I will say. And notoriously, United are very slow at doing deals as well. So they will need to crack on talking to clubs and agents through the tournament, but nothing official now, I don't think, and probably until after Euros. But yeah, until next time, Paulie, thanks for joining, mate. Thank you to everyone who's been in the comments. We had some great interaction with you again today, guys. You're loyal and faithful listeners. Thanks for joining us again today. And we'll see you soon for another United Happy Hour. Until then, guys, take care and look forward to the tournament. It's here, Euro 2021, starting tomorrow.